What is up, everybody? It is episode 3 of the B+Ball boys coming at you. We have Memphis Marco, Eric, and myself suffering through our season. So without further ado, we got a lot to talk about today. Let's get into it. I think we're going to start off with players pushing P real quick. I was taken by Gary Trent Jr.'s performance yesterday, helping the Raptors stay at the top of the play-in. He had 33 points, 5 rebounds, 1 assist, 5 steals. And he, shot a little under 50% for the game, but plus minus a 2. I thought best Raptor on the court last night. Really enjoyed that in triple OT. Brought it home for them. So that was pretty tight.
Can I just add a quick note to that?
Absolutely.
The Raptors, Heat, and Nets, Warriors are why we need like an NBA red zone, right? Because both of these games are going down to the wire at the same time. And, I'm trying to switch tabs back and forth to watch them both. And we just need an NBA red zone, especially if they're going to start they're going to tip off a lot of games at the same time.
Right. That's a good thing. We should pitch it to Spectrum.
I guess I'll go with my player pushing P. I guess I gotta go with my guy Ja Morant. I know I'm biased, but the Grizzlies were shorthanded this week. They were missing Desmond Bane, Tyus Jones, Kyle Anderson. Probably missing somebody. They missed Brandon Clark for part of the week. And he averaged 35 points over the last 6 games, including 41 and 8 in San Antonio, going up against DeJounte Murray in a win. They did take a loss to Dallas and Milwaukee. But overall this week, considering how many players were missing, wins over Denver, Utah, in a big game that has seeding implications, San Antonio and Washington is a big week for Mr. Ja Morant.
Absolutely.
That's Mr. to you, sir.
Mr.
Anyway, this was tough for me this week. I had written down a few players. So I want to give some honorable mentions because it was kind of tough. I'll just quickly go through my honorable mentions. So I had originally written down Chris Paul versus the Jazz on Monday. He was 10 for 17 from the field, 4 for 7 from 3, 13 assists. He's not my player pushing P this week because he did have 7 turnovers, but I thought that was a nice performance against the Jazz. And then another honorable mention I had was Jokic versus the Nets.
Let's go.
The man does it all, man. 8 for 13 from the field, was 2 for 2 from 3, 8 for 8 from the free throw line, 10 rebounds, 8 assists, 2 turnovers. But he's not my player pushing P this week. My player pushing P this week was Austin Rivers versus the Nets.
Let's go.
He was 7 for 10 from 3. And the reason that's significant to me is because he played against the Nets, who are the second best team defending from 3. And I don't want to hear that Kyrie or KD didn't play, because I don't believe that those guys are the nucleus of their amazing 3-point defense. So big shout out to Austin Rivers, 7 for 10 from 3. Salute.
If we're gonna add an honorable mention, I think I gotta add Tyrese Halliburton for his 38.7 assist performance in Philadelphia, a game that they lost, but screams, please trade for me.
That could be a
free Tyrese.
Free Tyrese. But sorry, I think Austin Rivers, he was on fire that game.
Literally.
Completely. And the Nuggets need any non-Jokic offense they can get. So just one player being on top of it at this point, plus Jokic is enough for them to win a game. Tough road game.
Yeah, very tough.
For sure. So this week we also had the all-star starter selections announced. In the East, we have DeMar DeRozan, Trae Young, KD, Giannis, and Joel Embiid. In the West, we have Steph Curry, Mr. John Morant, LeBron James, Nikola Jokic, and Andrew Wiggins. There's been a lot of criticism of the 50% fan vote determination. How do you guys feel about these selections?
You know, instead of talking about how we feel, why don't we look at some data, my friends?
I love it.
Oh, yeah.
I'm gonna pull up. I'm actually just gonna pull up. Here we
Pull
go.
up.
You guys see the spreadsheet?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What we are looking at are the 10 all-star starters and their basic stats. It's a lot to look at, but we are focused on this man right here, Mr. Andrew Wiggins. So you'll notice if we look at the points column, by far the least amount of points out of any starter. If we also look at free throw percentage, relatively terrible, 66% free throw. Shooting pretty well from three. He actually is the best three-point shooter by percentage out of the starters. And I mean, he takes a pretty decent amount, 5 a game. Definitely not the most, especially of his teammates. But you know, almost 50% from the field, that's pretty good. He also plays the least amount of minutes out of any of the starters. But this, to me, you know, a little weird. 18%, 18 points. You guys have any comment on this so far?
Well, I mean, on the one hand, theoretically with Warriors basketball, I think just since there's so many mouths to feed, that isn't necessarily the indictment. But, you know, having watched them, yes, it is an indictment. You know, he's definitely sort of turned around his career with the Warriors, this little stint he's had. But yeah, I think we're giving him some flowers prematurely here. This seems like, as with all the things you pointed out, a bit much. I don't know. I guess now he's eligible for what that higher tier of extension when he comes up on that. These are $20+ million decisions and selections potentially. So I think, you know, maybe bordering on irresponsible, I would say. Yeah.
I have some strong opinions.
Then let's why don't you flex on them if they're strong opinions? Let's go.
So I'm glad that you brought up this spreadsheet because it proves what I've been saying, which is that, first of all, Andrew Wiggins is not an all-star starter, and I would argue that he is not an all-star. Okay. And you know, I don't really care how hot this take is. You got the points up here. The next lowest in terms of points is 25.8 by his teammate Steph Curry.
Sure.
Look, I am not of the opinion that points make or break you in terms of all-star. I, in fact, would have given this spot probably to Rudy Gobert. And I don't know how many points he averages, but it's probably not even as many as Wiggins, right? That doesn't matter. The free throw percentage, you know, okay, so maybe he scores like a low amount of points. Maybe his free throw percentage is 66%, which is bad. And I actually did not know it was that bad. You point out the 3-point percentage. Well, you know, he's shooting the best from three because he's taking probably some of the least difficult attempts because
Non-contested.
he's a role player. Because he's a role player.
Right.
He's a good starter. he's one of the best role players you could possibly have in the league. But he is a role player. His threes are I mean, he does take the occasional like step back or something, but his threes are largely open. He's not making or breaking your offense here. Like consider the players that we could have had in this spot. Devin Booker. You know what I mean? Let's just say Devin Booker is a small forward. I have some comments on positions in a second too. Devin Booker, Gobert, which the Jazz I think are 1-7 without Gobert or something crazy. Even if Donovan Mitchell plays, Karl Anthony Towns could have had this spot. His teammate Draymond Green has a much bigger impact than Andrew Wiggins. I don't care how many points Draymond Green averages. I would have given this spot to Draymond over Wiggins. I don't know how you guys feel about that one. Even though he's missed some games. Andrew Wiggins is a really good role player. He is not a star. And therefore, to me, he is not an all-star. And it's just about like the role that he plays on that team. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Before we continue, I'm glad you guys brought up other players because that leads me into my next table. So I have outlined.
Oh no.
I have 3 columns in this table. This is one Andrew Wiggins and his individual stats.
Is he exactly 26 years old? Sorry.
That's probably just what it's. Yeah.
No, I'm sorry.
Well, the other one is the average. So.
No, continue, Eric. Sorry.
Okay. Anyway, these are the all-star stats, all-star starter stats without Andrew Wiggins. So the 9 other players. And then these are the averages when you factor in Andrew Wiggins. So if we go down to what were you saying he doesn't do well? Points. So he brings down the average like 1 point. He has significantly less turnovers, but like you said, he's more of a role player, so it's not like
exactly
all the time. There's nothing really that he does that's like, other than the 3-point percentage, that you're like, oh wow, he really, he should be with all these other starters. It's not like he's jacking up shots and he has the ball in his hand, so it does bring into question his impact. I mean, the field goal percentage is nice, but I think to Marco's point, it's his role. The numbers can be misleading because of his role in the way teams.
You got like the 3rd best offensive player on the court, so he's getting the probably the 3rd best defender from the opposing team. Maybe that's not always the case, but like, you got your best defender trying to stick Curry, trying to stick Thompson or Poole, right? And Andrew Wiggins, like, I'm not saying that these other guys, that the defenders he's facing are sweet or anything, but like, he's not getting the team. They're not game planning to stop Wiggins. They're game planning to, like, if Wiggins gets his game off, that's fine. If Wiggins beats us, that's okay. And that's why he's averaging 18 points, because Steph Curry can never touch the ball and just run around the court the entire time. And he'll have more imprint on the offense than Andrew Wiggins. And like I said, Andrew Wiggins, probably the best season of his career. I don't know, maybe you count his rookie of the year season better, but probably the best season of his career. He is a plus defender. He is he's a really good role player. Like, he's worked on his 3-point shot. He's not taking too many like mid-range pull-ups, but if Andrew Wiggins takes a shot and Steph Curry and Klay Thompson don't, I'm happy. This is not the case if it's a star player. Let's say the Nets, for example, just because they're another team filled with stars, right? If you got KD doesn't take a shot, you kind of maybe win a possession in a way, right? But let's say Harden or Kyrie does, you really didn't, because another star took the shot, right? Maybe Patty Mills is a really good shooter, right? But if you make him take you off the dribble, if you make Patty Mills take a shot off the drive, you might say that, well, at least Kyrie, Harden, and KD didn't take the shot. Like, we executed our defensive plan, made a role player who's a really good role player beat us. You know what I mean? It's the same with Wiggins. Wiggins, Patty Mills, like, they're both extremely good in their role. They're not a star. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, these are great points. And to round out what you were saying, and also to fill you in on why I texted you guys so late at night last night for some players that you think could be swapped out for Andrew Wiggins. My final table is we have the all-star starters averages without Wiggins, and then we have Wiggins, and then we have some players that you guys were saying you might want to compare or see swapped out with Wiggins, and here we have them. We can compare their stats. So I believe Marco is responsible for Desmond Bane, Cat, and Gobert. I'm attributing that to you correctly, right, Marco?
Yes.
Yes, that's correct.
And then Bogdanovich is for one William Mason.
Boyan.
And let's see, we can just start breaking it down. Let me see if I can zoom in a little more. 200 might be a lot. All right, we'll scroll down. But if we look at field goal attempts, we see that all-star starter averages almost 20. And, you got Cat with 16. Let's just say 17. And then very interesting to see Desmond Bane averaging the same number of field goal attempts as Wiggins.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
This is why I picked him, because if you look at his stats, they're almost identical to Wiggins.
Yeah.
He's a plus defender. He gets the toughest assignment every night since we've been missing Dylan Brooks. That he's shooting a great percentage from three. They both average just about 18 points a game, 4 rebounds, 2 assists. So what makes Wiggins an all-star and Bane not an all-star, right? Like, how are one of them is not going to make the all-star team and the other one is a starter with identical stats? Like, are you serious?
It's the city they play for.
Exactly.
Honestly.
It's just, and it's incredible to me that, like, Wiggins, he did well in the fan and media vote too, somehow. Like, sorry, not obviously he did well in the fan vote, the player vote too. Like, I don't know why. Like, I guess they're trying to stick up for another player, but the media, I thought maybe they would be a little more responsible than this. I don't know, but I would have given this spot probably to Gobert, if not to Cat. Like, it doesn't matter that there are 2 centers on the team. They call it front court, so it shouldn't matter, right?
Right.
And speaking, I think the biggest detriment to Gobert's case for all-star star, I mean, you look at these 3-point stats. I mean, this is just unacceptable. 0 for 0. You
So
miss
literally all season. He hasn't shot one all season.
You miss
Well,
100% of the shots you don't take, sir.
Okay, so Gobert needs to become a 3-point shooter, clearly, right? That's what we're saying.
The man is highly efficient if you look at field goals and then field goal attempts per game. Incredibly efficient, 70%. Not shooting a ton. I mean, it's like almost a 2/3 drop from the average field goal attempts when you look at the other starters. But when you look at field goal, it's 20 percentage points higher than the average field goal percentage. So super efficient.
Plus, you know what he's doing on defense.
Yeah, definitely. And where's the love for defense? Where's the love for defense?
Averaging 15 rebounds a game. If you're more like, all stars need to be offensive players, go with Karl Anthony Towns.
Yeah.
He's having a great season too.
Shooting well from 3.
Yeah.
The Wolves are playing well. He's averaging close to the standard, I would say, for All-Stars. I mean, he's going to make the All-Star team. It's just, I just maybe I define star a little differently than the voters did this year. I have another All-Star starter issue that I would like to talk about, but I don't want to cut us off from this topic.
I just wanted to round it out with I think, you know, you're looking at the total rebounds for Gobert, as you mentioned, Marco. I mean, 15 total
Gotta
rebounds.
count for something.
Yeah.
Leading the league.
Yeah.
And then you look at, I mean, Marco, this is great that you mentioned Desmond Bain, because I'm looking at, so you have in this column, the second one and the third one, Wiggins and then Desmond Bain. I mean, they're so similar. They're incredibly similar. There's nothing.
And one player is, yeah, go ahead.
No, there's nothing that I can see where it's like, that's the difference. Like they're literally the same.
Yeah, and no one will bat an eye at Desmond Bain not making the team. So I'm just saying, be consistent. You know what I mean? Like, I think I would like to bring up another point where I'm like, okay, maybe you could have put Booker in instead of Wiggins, but they called him a guard, right? Or rather than a front court player. But in the East, this is my hot take, I guess. DeMar DeRozan is not an all-star starter, in my opinion. And the reason is not because he didn't play well enough to be an all-star starter guard, I guess. But the reason is that he is not a guard. And they put him in the backcourt. And you may be like, oh, of course DeMar DeRozan is a guard. He plays guard-like ball. I checked cleaning the glass for these stats, right? He has basically not played a minute at guard since 2018-19, his first year in San Antonio, where he spent 20% of his time at shooting guard, most of his time at small forward. Over time, he's become more of a power forward. He's spent about 75% of his minutes at power forward for Chicago, 0% of his minutes at shooting guard. Yet they put him in as a guard. The last time he played more minutes at guard than forward was the 2016-17 season.
Wow.
So how do you put DeMar DeRozan in as a guard? You say, we got to have DeRozan, right? Like, you know, what was it? Trey and DeRozan are the backcourt, you know? But in the West, you're like, well, I guess the other front court guys weren't deserving, and leave out Devin Booker, the best player on the best. Yes, he's better than Chris Paul, the best player on the best record team in the NBA. But in the East, we're just going to ignore positions and say DeMar is the starter. Like, we could have just had Levine. You know what I mean? Levine is probably equally deserving of that all-star starter role. So when I say DeMar DeRozan is an all-star starter, it's not because, you know, he's not a top-level player in the East. It's just he didn't play Giannis, Embiid, or KD. You know what I mean? And that's a super high bar. That's the front court in the East, but he's a front court player, so that's his competition. You know, I was a little frustrated by the inconsistency.
That's scorching hot take. But the reasons you've outlined, they back it up.
It's difficult for me when he has not played a single minute at a guard position this year. You know, and going back to 2019, probably since then. So,
Great.
You know, I saw someone else get kind of cooked for that take on Twitter, but I think it's correct. He is not a guard. He didn't play Giannis, outplay Giannis, KD, or Embiid, and therefore should not be an all-star starter, just technically. Let's be honest about these position requirements, or just remove them. Or, you know, add like a flex role. Because you wouldn't have either of these issues if that was the case. We could put Booker at the forward or the flex one rather than Wiggins. I think we can all agree Booker is a much better all-star starter than Wiggins.
Oh, absolutely.
Hmm. And we could put DeMar in if we just like weren't even considering positions at all. But I would just like to see some consistency.
Yeah, cool. Um, anything else? Thank you, Eric, for doing this. This is
No,
great.
thank you guys. Because I think the highlight of this has been comparing Desmond Bain to Andrew Wiggins. It's been enlightening.
Yeah, that's a illustrative comparison. There's bias that we've concretized, I guess. Do we want to talk about who we think is gonna get the last 7 spots in each conference, or do we want to move on to the a team in the
The
league?
next segment.
Team in the league. A team, is that what we're doing? Well, we're beating around the bush. Just say it. I was rooting for the Wizards. I'm a jinx, man. I'm a proverbial black cat wherever I go, wherever I rest my hat, whether it be the New York Giants. I was a Damian Lillard fan and I rooted for the Trailblazers. Then Denny Avdia got drafted by the Wizards. I said, I'm going to root for the Wizards.
I was about to say the Denny Avdia super fan has logged on.
This is all to say, Marco, you better hope I don't start rooting for the Grizzlies. That's all I'm gonna say. But I just hijacked it, but let's just not beat around the bush, okay? I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed to have the take earlier in the podcast saying that the Cavs wouldn't do as well as the Wizards. I feel like Stephen A. Every time he picks the finals winner. It's embarrassing. I flopped. So they're the team, all right? I gotta suffer.
Can I engage in your suffering a little bit and detail some of the issues they've had over the past week?
Why don't we just dive right into it?
Okay. Well, what everybody knows is that they did blow a 35-point lead this past Tuesday against the Clippers, who are, without their star players, but they're a team that plays really hard and never gives up for what it's worth. What we do know is that the 4-point play that gave the Wizards a win, that gave the Clippers the win, was actually an incorrect call, as confirmed by the last 2 minutes report. I think they fouled him before the shot, as they had intended to do. You can't really put yourself in the position for that to matter when you were up 35 regardless, but that just kind of adds insult to injury.
Right.
What we do know is that Bradley Beal made a very strange comment after that game, saying that some of his teammates were fighting to stay in the NBA, and that causes discord because they have different agendas. I don't quite understand that one. I don't know who in their regular rotation is fighting to stay in the NBA at the moment. If you can think of somebody, let me know, because all their rotation players are either like recent draft picks or veterans on not their first contract. If you think of who he could have been referring to, please, go ahead.
The way this guy's playing, you'd think he's scrapping to be in the NBA. Bertans, but
okay, but he's not in the rotation.
Yeah, no, I think it is a strange comment indeed.
We know that he wouldn't sign an extension. Everybody knew this because he can make more money signing it in the summer than he could right now. That's not unexpected. However, he has Wizards fans in the Twitter spaces acting crazy about what his future is and whether they should have traded him already or not. They sit on that loss for 3 days. They had a long time off of that loss. Go into Memphis. Memphis is a really good team, of course, but the Wizards only put up 41 points in the first half, end up losing. by a big margin. I had kind of thought this might be a trap game for the Grizzlies, for my Grizzlies, since they were on the second night of a back-to-back and they were facing a Wizards team that had sat in that L for several days and was rested. However, they weren't able to ever really get into the game. Beal, I think he went 2 for 12, 9 points. He did have 12 assists. And then you had another strange comment from a Wizards player. I've kept this one from Dinwiddie, who they asked if he could be a leader for the Wizards. He said, "It's an interesting situation. I spoke up a little bit early on. It wasn't necessarily welcomed. And so, like I said, I try to do whatever is asked of me. At the end of the day, everyone has a role to play. It's about being accountable in your role and doing that to the best of your ability. That's really all I've got." So, you have Dinwiddie making some strange comment about leadership there. I didn't even see. They apparently benched Daniel Gafford, which I think is strange. I really like him. I guess my question to you guys is like, is this the? I have never heard Bradley Beal complain about his situation until this week.
Yeah,
his teammates. It's never mattered to him. Just about getting to that contract extension with the Wizards that's worth more money than anybody else could pay.
Mhm.
I've never heard him discontented with the situation. It seems like it's kind of falling off the tracks. It seems like, they got Kuzma back, but he's a little bit on the older side. So I don't know. Like, what do you guys think? Are the Wizards finally going to blow it up?
I would recommend it. 26 isn't the oldest. I'm just looking at Kuz right now. Okay.
Oh, he's 20. Okay, I thought he was a little older than that.
Yeah, you kind of do. I think, but I also just see him signing the extension, and then they're perpetually in the play-in range for the next 5 years or so. And it's not the worst thing, I guess. They're selling more tickets than they would be if they were, say, the 13 seed. But yeah, I don't know if they ever want to take a big swing. I think they just gotta stock the cupboard with draft picks. You'll get a lot for Beal, and try again in 3 to 5 years with after the rebuild's sort of underway. But what do you think, Eric?
I think you got some options. You got some options. So if I'm looking at the salaries for the Wizards, you have Bradley Beal currently getting paid, rounding up $35 million a year. The Wizards, if you have aspirations to win a championship, is Bradley Beal, can you afford for Bradley Beal to be the best player on your team? I think he's been pretty durable in his career. I think in the current environment we're in, him not being vaccinated, that was another thing too. I was going to mention he might be personally pressured because I know he had a longer than usual bout with COVID and he's unvaccinated.
He might have eventually got it. I'm not sure. There was some report that he eventually got it after the beginning of the season.
Well, I know for the longest time he was anti, but that's neither here nor there, I guess. But the next highest paid player is Spencer Dinwiddie, and I know he's on a relatively short-term contract. How many years is it? It can't be more than 3. It might even be 2. He's on a very short-term contract. So that I don't think you need to move him, but it's nice to know that you're not locked into him for a while. Davis Bertans is coming in third, and you pay the guy to shoot.
Ugly.
You pay the guy to shoot threes. He's shooting 32.5% from 3. The Wizards are one of the bottom 5 3-point shooting teams in the league. You can't trade him. And if you do, you're not going to get anything back. And I don't know who would want to take his contract considering how poorly he's playing. But everyone else on the team either they're not locked into long term and they're not paying a ton for it, or they have some really good young talent. Denny Avdia, keep developing him. Hachimura, he's only
Love
getting
him.
5 million, and I'm sure he'll be due for an extension soon. But I think a lot of teams would like to have Roy Hachimura on their team. Thomas Bryant, a relatively young player, not being paid a whole lot of money. He's coming off ACL, but I don't know where Wizards management is. I mean, it's not like it's a really small market. I mean, it's bigger. It's not a small market, but it's also not like LA or New York or Miami or anything like that. If I were the Wizards, I think you gotta move Beal at this point and try to maybe take a page out of the Thunder book, stack some picks. It's just it might not be like the safest move, because I think you kind of know what you're getting out of Beal. He's been pretty consistent throughout his career, and like I said, he's pretty durable, especially when you compare him to his counterpart for the longest time, John Wall. But I would explore trades. I don't know if extending him to all that money is going to move you out of the current situation. And on top of that, the other pieces that I mentioned that you could trade that you're not locked into long term, KCP, Kyle Kuzma, Montrez. I mean, they were, I think a month or two ago, they were fighting in the locker room.
Yeah.
You kind of have, it's like you have a jigsaw puzzle. Like you have multiple jigsaw puzzles, you take a few pieces from each box and you try to make a puzzle out of the different pieces. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel organic. It feels forced. And I hate saying that because I would not have said that 3 months ago, the way they were playing, but something has gone awry. Maybe it's me being a super fan. I don't know, but that's my 2 cents on the situation.
I think you're spot on.
Hey, maybe the Grizzlies could use them. I don't
Oh,
Who, Beal?
know. Yeah.
Nah, I think if you asked me last year, I might have considered it, but this year at this point, I mean, I just kind of don't feel like there's a need for the Grizzlies to trade for Beal.
mhm.
I think what we know is in the NBA, almost every team eventually has to take the L and tank for a little bit, right? Like every now and then, you're gonna have to be bad for a little, and it's not gonna be fun for your ticket sales,
Mhm.
but like the Lakers come to town once a year. Hopefully, you'll get some of that back, right? Beal is having such a weird season because this has been like not a good season for Bradley Beal, right? But at the same time, all the attention that he draws has allowed these smaller piece teammates to rehab their values a little bit, right? Because he draws so much attention that, well, he can't get in a rhythm himself like he has in previous seasons, but he's got other players on the team playing well as a result. KCP, Dinwiddie, Kuzma, Harrell, all these guys, and they did what they still did well on the Westbrook trade, right?
Mhm.
Because they got a pick back for Westbrook. They
Mhm.
got 3 players whose contracts are tradable,
Right.
And I kind of see these moves as maybe more likely than a Beal move at the deadline, just because a Beal move is theoretically really difficult. You can trade KCP. You might get, I don't know, 2 second-round picks. That'd be nice, right? You can trade Harrell. I think he's rehabbed his value a little bit because on the Lakers, he kind of fell out of the rotation. He looks very useful, even though he's kind of fell off a little bit this season. He looks pretty useful for the Wizards. Kuzma, I think you're right. He's a little younger than I initially thought. I would maybe only trade him if I got like a really good offer, maybe multiple first round picks, 2 first round picks even. You know, that could be a worthwhile swing for the Wizards. So they got off of Westbrook, got a pick back for getting off of Westbrook, and now have very tradable contracts and a lot of flexibility. And I think this was the point to begin with, right? That they might not stick with this team, but instead they have all this stuff that they can move around. They can't move Gafford. He signed an extension. He's not eligible for a trade. So it's crazy to me that he's fallen out of the rotation. You paid him money and now you're not playing him. It's very wild. I guess maybe they want to trade Harrell or Thomas Bryant and stick with Gafford, but it's a little blatant the way they're showcasing these centers for trade right now, I think. Beal, I mean, but because of the bad season I was saying to begin with, like, he's drawing so much attention. The other players on the team are playing well, but his value itself is way down because he's not playing like the scoring leader that he used to be. So I don't know. I don't think they're in the toughest spot, right?
No.
You could make a couple minor moves and ride it out. And honestly, you might like make the 10th spot somehow and still have like a season that was maybe better than people expected, but worse than that 13-game start that they were off to, you know, where they were 10-3 and atop the East. If you compare where they end, they might still be above that expectation that we had at the beginning of the season, but you could also just like blow the whole thing up. And I really like Rui. Like, he is trying to play like baby Kawhi, which I really like. Obviously, you know, Kuzma, like I said, a little younger than I thought. You could probably keep him around. Gafford, I really like as a young center. And then you would be bad, so you would get a ton of first round picks for your players and have a lot of players to build around. Is Bertans expiring?
Like the contract?
Yeah.
You would hope so, right?
I guess it's not. Maybe he has
Let's
this
see.
year and the next one left.
He signed, jeez, he signed a 5. Hey, good for him. He signed a 5-year. He signed a 5-year, $80 million contract last year. So he signed through 2025.
Oh my gosh.
So,
okay.
and it's basically, it's almost fully guaranteed.
Yeah.
69 million guaranteed. So if they cut him, there's no point in cutting him either. I mean, that'd be a huge hit on your cap.
Yeah.
And what are you going to get out of him for a trade? Nobody wants to take on that contract, fully guaranteed. The guy shoots 32% from 3. Which, by the way, you mentioned a couple things that I want to address, Marco. Number one, it's very telling that you said Bradley Beal, despite having, if you take just last year and compare it to this year, you would argue that the overall talent is better. Sure, you had Russell Westbrook last year, but I would argue the big situation with your bigs is much better. I think Kyle Kuzma and KCP are an upgrade. But what you said about how, I mean, last year, Bradley Beal forced his way into the All-Star game. The team was not good, but he was putting up ridiculous numbers points-wise, forced his way into the All-Star game. And now that this year, it's like, I know it's been a little more inconsistent. He's been out for, he's been in and out of the, like you mentioned, with the rhythm, with other players doing well. It's like, if I'm the GM of the Wizards, I'm like, that's interesting. We kind of improved the team and our star player is not improving. That's like, to me, it's kind of a red flag. But then to your point about waving the bigs around for trades, it's like, when you look at their stats, they're top 5 in 2-point percentage. They get easy buckets. They're 28th in 3-point percentage. They are terrible shooting from 3. Bradley Beal's shooting like 30% from 3. That's ridiculous.
You know what else they do well? They get a lot of free throw attempts.
Yeah, they're 3rd and 3.
They get at the line a lot.
Yep. But Bradley Beal, I mean, he's killing them. He shoots the 3rd most. He shoots the 3rd most threes on the team. Shoots 30%. You combine that with Dinwiddie shooting 31% and Bertans shooting 32%. That's 15 threes and you're making 3 or 4 of them.
I guess my question is, if I'm an opposing team and I'm like, oh, yeah, maybe I was interested in a Beal trade in the past. And I'm looking at him now and I'm wondering, does he need the ball that much to be effective on offense, right?
Right.
Because now that he has a little less time on the ball, even though Westbrook had the ball a lot in the past, now that he's getting like maybe less shots up, maybe less of his shots up, he's not playing as well. Am I wondering if I'm a good team, I'm probably trying to pair him with other stars. So he's not the number one. I think we can all agree he can't be the number one on a really good team.
No.
Right. If I'm looking at him and I'm like, well, I want him to be the number 2 or maybe the number 3, I may be thinking like maybe he can't play as well in that role. I'm not sure. He's still the number 1 on Washington, but even with less usage, it just doesn't look like it's going as well. But he's a really good player. Maybe
Yeah.
I'm completely wrong and someone trades for him and he's the number 2 and they have a better team around him and he figures it out. But that would be a thought in the back of my mind if I was trying to trade for him, and that might make me a little more hesitant if I want to, give up all the picks in the world for Bradley Beal.
I think also too something to factor is maybe if you're Washington front office, you're saying, okay, we have a bunch of new players from the Westbrook trade. We have a new coach and trying to navigate the ups and downs of NBA season. Maybe you cool off a bit, but then again, you're taking a risk. If you're like, okay, we expect to play better next year now that we have more stability. And if we try to keep everything the same, you're taking a risk. If you're like, well, let's just sign Bradley Beal to this extension in the summer. So there's going to be some tough decisions because, being a first-time head coach is tough in any sport, and especially with the new players. And like I said, with the jigsaw puzzle analogy, when I think of Kyle Kuzma, KCP, and Montrezl Harrell, I'm like, oh, those are the guys that got traded to the, you know what I mean? Like, it still feels like you're like, do they really want to be there? Are they going to be there long term? There's a lot of tough decisions they're going to have to make. But
these are journeymen. Like, this is a Harrell's
true.
4th team.
Kuzma will be the most interesting for sure to see what he wants to do.
If I was the Wizards, I would trade KCP and probably Harrell.
I do see what Eric's saying though, that Kuz he's got a little bit of Simmons in him where he wants to be in like a glamour market. So on the one hand, maybe get a little bit of an asset for him while you still can. Don't just want to see him walk in a couple of years, but yeah, I don't know.
Hey, let's go Cavs now. Am I right?
Let's go Cavs.
Let's go Cavs. I have so much fun watching the Cavs. Oh my gosh.
That was another guy that could have been an all-star, Darius Garland.
Mm-hmm.
He could still be an all-star, but
I think he's going to make the team. However, if it's between him and Fred VanVleet, I want VanVleet to get it.
Yeah, down for VanVleet. Well,
by the way,
I'm sorry. Yeah.
This is completely unrelated, but I just thought of VanVleet in that triple overtime game. All 5 Raptors starters played more than 50 minutes.
Yeah.
In that game.
In that 8 a.m. practice.
I think he was joking about that.
I think so too. Yeah.
But oh my gosh, like VanVleet, I think he already leads the league in minutes probably, and just up that average a little bit.
Absolutely.
Well, stat padding going on.
Oh yeah, stat padding in triple overtime. That's what was happening.
In a victory. That's funny. Okay, well, anything to close us out, or we happy? Cool.
It's going to be interesting. I think we're going to continue to dig deeper into the analytics once we see what the all-star reserves, who they're going to be.
Absolutely.
But I have faith that there'll be less
less surprises.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think we'll be more satisfied. But we'll see. You never know. But either way, we're gonna do a deep dive into it. So stay tuned.
Doing a deep dive. So stay tuned. All right. Thanks everyone.
Peace.
See you next episode.